All right, good afternoon. I'm Dave Parker. I have the dubious honor of being the first speaker right after a big lunch. So if you, it'll be quick, but I may throw something if I start seeing eyelids instead of eyeballs. Yes, sir, thank you. This is titled on the agenda Best Practice, so I'll be the first to admit that I don't have the best practices. I'll also say this is the world according to Dave Parker, not necessarily BAMC or Brooke Army Medical Center. But this is how I've done it for the three different facilities where I've had the honor of being a preceptor, and we'll go from there. So the purpose is I'm giving you my tactics, techniques, and procedures. Again, I'm not saying it's the best practice. This is just what has worked for me and worked for the graduates, with the goal of making a graduate. Right? They come in and they're still a little blurry, starry-eyed because they just went through 10 months of heck. Right, and then an oral boards, and then now they want to get busy in their rotation. And so the funnest part of this job is to take that knuckle dragon. I've been in the field for 4 years, and now you put me in a hospital, and they can't even spell hospital or MTF. And then 52 weeks from now, right? Then they're speaking languages and doing RVUs and RWPs, business case analysis, and hiring actions. And so it's really cool, and they've scrubbed in, and that's the great thing. And then from the clinical side, again, I'll talk about one of my residents, a nurse that spent all the time on the ward and wanted to come in and say, okay, I'm ready to go to the ward. I said, that's the last thing you're doing. And then once you do it, you go to the ward, and now I want you to walk through the ward as an administrator, not as a nurse. And he came back and, sir, there's so much waste going on. I said, you're right, Matt. Now you have the scarlet A. Right? So this is what we're going to talk about. First, just so you know where I'm coming from, all the great stuff Lorena has to say, it's not me. It's because of proximity to Brooke Army Medical Center. And we have a lot to offer, which is I welcome multiple residents. There's plenty to do. There are plenty of projects and process improvements to happen in 35 clinics, 28 ORs, 3 million square feet. A lot of stuff to do at BAMC, plenty of rotational opportunities. And so if you're looking to, I call them prisoner swaps, so if you're looking to swap residents, they're welcome to come here. Just have the residents coordinate with each other. They come spend a few days a week at BAMC, rotate around, but I like to reciprocate that to then get our residents out. Why is this a cool place? When you look at the rotations, so 10 trauma activations a day, 60 surgeries a day, 60 admissions a day. So that's all clinical stuff, right? But then you look at the revenue generating, the pounds of Class 8 requisition, so medical supplies requisitions, the amount of water. So there's also plenty of administrative opportunities to, certainly within all of this, it happens every day. There's something that can be improved or just studied and observed, and how can we do this better? So this is Dave Parker, and I've already met with the 2 incoming residents, so I've done my initial meeting. And the way I do this no paper. I just want to come in and meet you. Tell me who you are, what you're doing, did you survive your didactic year, how was the oral boards, what do you think? But I do, so what are your strengths and weaknesses? And then I give them some guidance, and my first guidance on your residency plan is you're going to start with what is your weakness. So when we went through the little drill from Lorena, and there's a 2, that's going to be a starter. There's a 2, what's your background? Are you a nurse? Are you a doc? I've had an optometrist, several nurses, several administrators, but administrators that literally just came from the field. Right? So I force them to start with their weakness. What are they most uncomfortable with? 2 years ago, I had both residents come in and said, I am fearful, stutter, or will not speak in front of people. And no problem. You will be speaking within the first month. and I just, I don't throw them out there to the wolves, but I set their residency plan, so they're going to do that. And the second meeting is a little more formal. I call it the DCA information sheet. It really is. It's a 1-pager, and I hand it to them at the first one, tell them come back with it. And it's tell me about yourself, your family, your hobbies, what you like to do, your kids' ages. And so I get to know a little bit about them, goals. And then I do the same. So this is the part I think it's important for them to know a little bit about me, know about Valerie, know about my 3 kids. Why is Parker leaving at lunch to go to a award ceremony? Because that's what I'm going to do. And my expectation for you, resident, is you also allow time to go to your kids' award ceremony or soccer game or basketball game or whatever. That's okay. And I think that we'd start building that work-life balance, because for the last 10.5 months, there probably wasn't a whole lot of that, I'm guessing. So, not a Baylor guy, I should have told you that up front. So I did the MHA through Texas A&M, typical fall, spring, summer practicum instead of a residency, fall, spring. Same program, same KMA accredited, very similar, but not crammed into 10 months. So I am cognizant of that and trying to get some of that work-life balance back into them. And then I do, so professional records, the officer record brief for the civilians in the room. So this is a picture of you and all the jobs you've done in your military career. And so I go through that, and what are your specialties? What did you like about being deployed? What did you like about being at some that were at OTSG or our higher headquarters? And then their support forms. So they come here and we'll get an evaluation. And I tell them up front, I set those expectations up front. Your job here is to be a student, you're a resident. There should be 0 expectations that you're a top block, walking on water officer when you leave on this report card. It's not a bad thing. It's so my rating scheme is me, the colonel, and then the general officer. The general officer also rates captains, generally captains, majors, that have responsibilities for 200 to 300 other soldiers, administrative type stuff. And so the resident that's responsible for themselves. So I just kind of lay it out there. So don't worry about your evaluation. We'll do the solid words and stuff, but don't worry about the block check. It's just expectation management. I haven't had any pushback on that once I've laid it out and explained. Company commander responsible for all the kids that, the 200 to 300 kids that are under their command, versus you responsible for yourself. Then we go through the bear. Baylor's, well, we've done enough bearing. And then review first draft of the plan. And so I literally say first draft because, I give them guidance. Here's what I expect you to see. And they talk to the previous residents, so don't start from scratch. They talk to the previous ones. And I'll start, no, you don't need to spend, with your background, you don't need to spend 3 weeks on the ward. You don't need to spend 3 weeks in logistics, depending on your background. So I'll gauge the timing of their residency plan, how much time they need to spend in each area, and then if they need to add some time, again, it's based on their experience. So kind of the first 2 meetings. And then they build the plan. And so some of the things that we talked about already was dedicating time. And so when they look at it at 52 weeks, well, I got plenty of time, I'll catch that next week, But they don't. If they don't put it in the plan, then they're not going to catch them all. Simple stuff like, you have to do your HIPAA training before I let you on any system, right? You have to do your information assurance training. All those little nebulous stuff, but you got to do that first before you can even start into your rotations. And they're so hungry to start rotations, but you got to start the first ones. Lorena talked about that week prior, so I pull out the dates, I pull out the manual. Here's all your due dates. It might be good for you to have a week prior, and I call it your head down time. That's your head down, writing, getting ready for your suspense dates. Just plan for it. And holidays, pay time off, leave. And then we were talking earlier about the prisoner swaps, the resident swaps of, talk to your buddies. Yeah, go spend 3 days at Baptist. Go spend 3 days at the VA. Go spend 3 days at SMHS or whatever is the appropriate amount of time. And I think I've already said, and then I force them into your least experience. So if you're clinical, you're going to do heavy admin the first go around, vice versa. If you're an administrative background, you're going to do a lot of clinical. And on a clinical, I fully expect you to scrub in, to get in surgeries. I expect you to do night shifts on the ward. I expect you to do night shifts in the ED. You're going to get in there and do that clinical experience. And then be flexible, because that plan it doesn't withstand the first shot, right? And so the other thing I wanted to show you, so when I have them do a plan, and once we sign. This is actually a second iteration, but I usually stamp it and sign it, and I make the resident stamp and sign it. This is our contract that we are going to do this, and I think that's what you get the first go around. So this is a second iteration, and some of you won't be able to see, but I do check blocks, and I'll talk to you about our meetings, but I'll check it off. You did this, but there's a lot of blue arrows. I didn't get that, something happened. I didn't get that, something happened. And it's not a bye, it's, okay, I've circled that. Until you get back to that, you're not a go in this, right? So it's a living, breathing document. So this will change based on residency availability, but more often than not based on clinical availability. And so I would offer that to all preceptors, that be okay that even though you spend a lot of time and got approval from faculty, that it's going to change. Orientation, so the first day or first week on a job, they spend it with me, and our Monday mornings is our executive committee, and so I have them all come in, stand up, introduce themselves, and so that the entire XCOM sees who's the new Baylor residents, so they put a face to a name. Tuesday morning is our larger meeting with all our department chiefs, the NCOICs, the nurses, and the administrative officers. I do the exact same thing. I make them stand up in front of 200 people. Here's who I am, I'm Captain Alicia Franco now, right? Right? And so they, not so that the residents will know them, but so when they say, well, who's this resident calling me? Oh yeah, I remember I saw you at the, and then that's it. And then it's upon them, the way I run it, then I've introduced you, they have your name, now it's upon you, we have an approved plan for you to start making that contact. And you need to be planning 6 weeks, 7 weeks out to, I'm going to be in your clinic for these 3 days, who do I need to see or what I need to do. So they're making those contacts. I'm not hand-holding them, introducing them to Colonel so-and-so or Mr. so-and-so. Okay. Hospital tour, so this is a lift from Colonel Dave Bitterman, Colonel retired Dave Bitterman, when I was doing this the first time. He does a scavenger hunt, and it's really just a way to have fun. And so and my list has grown significantly of 20, 25 things. We have a spiral staircase in BAMC. And that's what, find the spiral staircase. I link them up with the facility manager, again, 3 million square feet. And to have a little more fun, really for my pleasure, is take a selfie, right? And so you don't get the pass until you finished your scavenger hunt and sent me selfies for all of the, I think it's 25 items. You don't get to pass. So part of that is getting them out and about, getting them to appreciate how large the facility is, but they're meeting people and they're seeing things and they're having a little bit of fun. And they have fun back. So 2 years ago, I walked into my office one morning and I had all these selfies posted all over the wall. That was interesting. But a lot of fun, but it gets them out. Mission, vision, so they get the typical command brief, so they understand the organization. And then they sit with me for that first week. I think it's important for them to understand the culture. What is the command interested in right now? What is the XCOM interested in? That's driving a lot of decisions. So when they're at the department or clinic level, this is translating out, or it's great feedback when they say, y'all said this. This is what the dermatology clinic's doing. It is a little bit of G2. I told them you're not spies, but I do want to hear about your rotations. So it is kind of a check back on some of the stuff you put out. And then they have full access to my calendar. And, and so it's full details. And so they are invited to every meeting. And I said the only caveat is, so there's a general officer that outranks me. So you're invited to every meeting until someone who outranks me says you're not invited to that meeting. And don't be hurt if you get asked to get up and leave. But otherwise, you're privy to all of that and take advantage of it. And they do, as it fits within their rotations. Projects, I think we've hit the 4 projects. And then my take is I tell them plan on doing 10 to 15 projects. That every time they do a rotation, so every day they're doing a rotation, that's an opportunity for a project. So on the back of their checklist, I told you I pull this out at every meeting. On the back is where I keep track of their projects, of where they're at. And then we talk about, is this going to turn into a portfolio project, or is this just a project that's going to benefit you or the organization? For me, so these are real world projects. We had a Baylor resident project on the UV lights for C. diff, the xenon buying the robot to go in the room. We ended up purchasing those. We had a Baylor project on portable x-rays. So what did the radiologist want? I need 12 new portable x-rays because they're all going down. The Baylor residents, however, did the data and said, well, the problem is you have portable x-rays stationed in the ER. 2 always stay there. They never move out of the ER. 2 are always in the main OR and our secondary OR, and they never move. And the rest of them, they're on radiology until they're called, and they are constantly going up and down and moving. So it wasn't you need new ones, you need to rotate your stock, right? And so it saved us a ton of money by not having to buy a whole new suite of portable x-rays. So they bring value to the organization. That's free labor, and they do the analysis, and then they present. So some of those, I think Ren was talking that, is it just a BCA? No, it's not a BCA. It's a BCA. Then you had to public speak. Then you had to do decision making. You had to do data analysis. So it covers multiple aspects of the JMSC. And then, so this was the one-on-one meeting. So every Friday, and I've moved them to Thursdays because Fridays, everything happens on Friday, right? And so I've moved them to Thursdays, but it's 30 minutes. It's on my calendar. It's on their calendar. And I do them back to back, 30, 30, 30. And it's not something that gets, that they can move. And if I move it, like today, I was going to be here. So we met yesterday. And it's dedicated time. And here's what I cover is, I usually ask, I do, how's it going? And so Anna will be here this afternoon. You can ask her. Does Parker ask about your life? How's Frank doing? How are the kids doing? They're in Belize right now. But it's a very scripted, okay, 1-2 minutes, how you doing? How was your rotation? What did you do last week? What are you working on? What's coming up? And as we talk about their rotations, and I know they're going to an area that I have an interest in, when you're there, ask these questions, right? So some of that is, I get a lot of benefit from that. But I can confirm, deny that messages from the command are making it to the department. But I also like feelers on hiring actions, major equipment purchases, supply purchases, what's going on? Are they really buying all this stuff, or just ask them about it? And then I turn it over to, and then what questions do you have for me? And then last thing is there anything I can do for you? And this is important because as we were talking about rotations, and I expect them to be planning rotations 6 to 8 weeks out, is, well, Colonel so-and-so or Mr. so-and-so, they're not answering my phones, they're not answering my emails, I can't get in, they keep canceling on me. And that's my cue to let me know when you want me to engage. And then so that, well, next week, okay, well, how'd you get? Did you get Parker yet? Not yet. So I can just very easily walk around the hospital and said, you will see the Baylor resident, tell me what time. And I can affect that. But unless you have this dedicated time to get feedback from your resident, you don't know. So those are every week. And then depending on the meetings, we have a strategic planning meeting. We have several VIP visits that come in. I'll pull them aside. If we had a heated discussion or a very important interaction, what did you think about that? How could this happen better? What do you think the significance of that meeting engagement was? Just to get their feedback on are they, again, you're not just sitting on the wall kind of brain dumping. You're there to engage and be part of the conversation. And this really just started this year, was the talking to the faculty. And so 2 of the faculty came and checked up on me. Again, I think it's the convenience. Dr. Perry came over multiple times, I think, to check up on me. But in that 30-minute meeting, I welcomed them all to come in and sit with a meeting. And then Dan and I, we corresponded or via email or talked. But it was a good check for me. This is where I think the resident's at. What do you think? This is what I think the focus is of the rotation. What do you think? And so it was good for us to have that communication with all three faculty advisors. So I would encourage that. Again, it's probably easier for me because they can just come across the creek. But that telephonic or email was a good check. that we are both seeing the resident growing and developing along their rotations. And this is the last slide was, don't let them forget the professional development. So the military officers that are coming to you, whether it's military or civilian, they still have to track where they're at in promotion boards and command selection boards, post-residency assignments if they don't have it already. So I guess I encourage you, don't let them lose sight of that as they're going through the residency year. And then finally, it was mentioned earlier, but there's plenty of professional organizations to be a part of, whether you're a true administrator or a straight administrator or a clinician, whatever that professional organization is. I think it's key to get outside your little sphere of this is just military medicine, to understand and appreciate the bigger healthcare organizations that are out there. All right, almost got us back on time. That was it. Questions? Hey, Jeff?
Would you be willing to share that information sheet with us?
I'll be happy to. Yep. I'll send it to Lorena, and then there's not a lot. I mean, it's kind of a basic sheet, but it's an icebreaker. Yep. Anybody else? All right, great. Thanks.